To millions of fans, she was the first lady of country music. The voice behind Stand By Your Man. A song that made her a symbol of devotion. But behind that gentle, devoted image was a private reality almost nobody saw. One that only fully came into focus after she was already gone. Let's start with who she actually was. Tammy Wynette was born Virginia Wynette Pugh in 1942, in rural Mississippi. She rose fast in the late 1960s, becoming one of country music's defining voices. 20 number-one hits. Millions of records sold. A genuine icon of her era. Her rise wasn't easy, though. Before fame found her, she worked as a hairdresser to support her family, often practicing songs between appointments. That grit stayed with her throughout her career, shaping the raw, emotional honesty that made her music resonate with so many listeners across generations. But her personal life told a very different story. She married 5 times. Her 4th marriage, to a real estate agent, ended within 6 weeks. She later called it an expensive lesson in her life. Health problems plagued her constantly. A hysterectomy in 1970 began years of surgeries. Chronic stomach and intestinal issues followed her for the rest of her life. In 1978, she married her 5th husband, songwriter George Richey. Publicly, she always insisted she adored him. Privately, her own family described something very different. Her daughters would later call the marriage emotionally abusive. That same year, Tammy reported something shocking. She said she'd been abducted from a mall parking lot. Beaten and left on a country road. Her face visibly bruised afterward. The case was never solved. But years later, her daughter revealed something disturbing. She wrote that Tammy had privately confessed the kidnapping story wasn't true. That it had actually been created to cover up a beating from her husband. Richey denied that allegation completely. It was never proven either way. Meanwhile, Tammy's health kept declining. By the mid-1980s, her addiction to prescription painkillers had become impossible to hide. In 1986, she finally went public, entering treatment at the Betty Ford Center. Even that recovery wasn't simple. Weeks in, she needed emergency surgery, losing part of her stomach. Through all of it, to the public, she remained composed. Devoted. The voice of Stand By Your Man. Behind closed doors, her family says, she was increasingly isolated by her husband. Kept apart from friends and relatives who might have intervened. On April 6, 1998, Tammy Wynette died at 55. Doctors initially cited a blood clot. But in the months that followed, disturbing details surfaced. Reports emerged that powerful narcotics were being regularly delivered to her home. Her daughters filed a $50 million wrongful death lawsuit against both her doctor and George Richey himself. In 1999, her body was exhumed for a second autopsy. The final ruling, natural causes, specifically heart failure. No trace of certain drugs was found. Richey was eventually dropped from the lawsuit entirely. He remarried in 2001 and passed away himself in 2010. Her daughters have never fully accepted that official explanation. One has said plainly that she believes her stepfather isolated her mother deliberately, leaving her with, in her words, no one else left to turn to. Near the end of her life, Tammy reportedly told her daughter something quietly devastating. That George Jones, her second husband, had actually been the love of her life. That timing alone had kept them from making it work. So the real double life Tammy Wynette lived wasn't glamorous or secretive by choice. It was the gap between the woman millions adored on stage and the woman quietly struggling, often alone, behind closed doors. Even now, decades later, questions about her final years remain unresolved. If Tammy Wynette's story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments below. And hit subscribe for more real stories behind country music's most legendary voices.